The envelope was thin. That was the first thing I noticed. Everyone else at that table had a folder thick-bound, important-looking. My brothers had documents with their names printed in bold. Mine was a plain white envelope sealed, my name written in my mother's careful handwriting. Serafina. Not Serafina Mills. Just Serafina. Like I was already being separated from the name. I should have known then. My name is Serafina Mills. I am 31 years old. And on a Thursday afternoon in October, I opened that envelope and read 4 sentences that removed me from everything I had spent 6 years building. What none of them knew, not my mother Kathleen, not my father Bess, not my brother Isaac, and certainly not Marmon, was that 4 years later, one document placed quietly on a conference table would make our family's attorney go completely still. And when Ralph Hobbs finally looked up from that page, he didn't argue. He didn't question the numbers. He just asked if he could make a call. That was the one simple question. But before we get there, let me take you back to the room where everything was taken. The arrival Serafina drives 40 minutes through October rain to the estate. She has been told it is a routine family financial review. Nothing in the message from Kathleen suggests otherwise. She notices 2 unfamiliar cars in the driveway. A third she doesn't recognize parked near the gate. Too many people for routine. The room she enters. 11 people already seated. Ralph Hobbs has his folder open. Clyde Voss has a calculator face down beside him. Marmon is checking his phone. Isaac looks at the wall. Her father looks at the window. Kathleen gestures to the only empty chair. At the far end of the table, away from everyone else, Serafina sits. In front of her chair, a single white envelope. The reading Hobbs opens proceedings. The estate is being formally restructured. The Mills family textile business, valued at $2.3 million for division purposes, goes equally to Isaac and Marmon. The Dorset County property, the main estate, transfers to Kathleen with a trust structure benefiting Isaac and Marmon's children. The investment accounts totaling $1.4 million, split between the 2 brothers. Total: $6 million divided between 2 people at a table of 3 siblings. The envelope Hobbs clears his throat. He looks at Serafina. The envelope in front of you contains separate documentation regarding your employment status with Mills Textile. Serafina opens it. 4 sentences. Effective immediately. Her position as Creative and Client Development Director is terminated. Severance. 12 weeks of base salary. A non-disclosure clause. A line at the bottom that says the decision is final and not subject to appeal. Kathleen speaks. Serafina looks up. Kathleen meets her eyes for the first time. You were always better suited for something of your own, Serafina. We're doing you a kindness. The words are delivered without cruelty, which somehow makes them worse. Like the decision had been made so long ago it had already lost its emotional weight for everyone in that room. The exit. Serafina does not cry. Does not raise her voice. She folds the letter once, places it back in the envelope, picks up her bag and stands. Nobody stops her. Nobody says wait. Her father turns from the window as she passes his chair. For 1 second their eyes meet. He opens his mouth, closes it, looks away. She walks down the hallway, past the framed photographs of the business's milestones, ribbon cuttings, contract signings, industry awards, many of which she organized, managed, or made happen. Her name appears in none of the captions. She opens the front door. The rain is still falling. On the drive home she doesn't play music. She just drives. And somewhere between the 3rd and 4th mile, a thought arrives quietly, not dramatically, just clearly. They planned this. Not today. A long time ago. This envelope wasn't written this morning. The paper was too clean. The fold too precise. Someone typed those 4 sentences and sealed that envelope days, maybe weeks before she walked into that room. She files that thought somewhere she can reach it later. Then she keeps driving. Spoken exchanges. The bank account 3 days after the estate meeting. Serafina opens her banking app. $11,000. 6 years of work at a company her family owns. And she leaves with $11,000 and a 12-week severance she hasn't touched yet because spending it feels like accepting what happened. She makes a list. Not of what she lost. Of what she still has. A name. A skill set. 6 years of client relationships she built personally. Contacts in hospitality. retail development, and regional commercial real estate, and a detailed knowledge of every thread of the mill's textile business. Its suppliers, its margins, its weaknesses, its clients, that no termination letter can take back. The first attempt, she reaches out to 3 former clients. Clara Finch, a boutique hotel developer she had brought to Mill's Textile personally, responds warmly and agrees to a meeting. The other 2 don't reply. She tells herself it's timing. She doesn't believe it, but she tells herself anyway. The strange cancellation, Clara Finch cancels 2 days before the meeting. The email is polite, careful. We've decided to continue with our current supplier arrangement for the foreseeable future. Wishing you the best in your next chapter. The phrase next chapter lands strangely. It's the language of someone who has heard something about her, not someone who simply changed their mind. Lorena McGraw's message 6 weeks later. Lorena McGraw, a procurement coordinator Serafina worked alongside for 3 years, sends a short message through a professional platform. I don't know if this is my place, but I think you should know that people in your industry are hearing things. I don't know where it's coming from. What Marmon did 6 months before the estate meeting, Marmon approached Ephraim Doolin, the family's longtime accountant, with a private presentation. In it, he reframed 3 of Serafina's major creative decisions for the business as evidence of financial recklessness. A supplier diversification initiative she had launched, a hospitality partnership she had negotiated, a rebrand project she had championed. All 3 had increased the company's regional revenue. Marmon presented them as liability risks. Ephraim, who had worked for the Mills family for 20 years and understood which way the money flowed, compiled a supporting memo. The memo became part of the estate restructuring rationale. Serafina was never shown it, never given a chance to respond. The valuation, Leah pauses, then adds the piece that makes everything else click. The business valuation presented at the estate meeting, $2.3 million, was not the only valuation conducted. Marmon had commissioned an independent appraisal 4 months earlier. That appraisal came back at $4.1 million. The difference between the 2 numbers was $1.8 million. That difference did not disappear. It was redistributed quietly through a structure Leah doesn't fully understand but had overheard Marmon discussing with Clyde Voss on a Friday afternoon when neither of them knew she was still in the building. Serafina's response. Serafina thanks Leah. Her voice stays level. She asks 2 questions. Does Leah still have access to anything in writing? And is she willing to be contacted again if needed? Leah says yes to both. They hang up. Serafina stands in the parking lot for 3 full minutes without moving. Someone walks past with a cart and glances at her. She doesn't notice. The folder begins. That evening she creates a folder on her laptop. She names it simply Record. Inside it she places the termination letter, a timeline she types from memory of her 6 years at Mills Textile, the details of every client account she built personally, and a written summary of everything Leah told her. She doesn't know yet if she will ever use it. But something in her, the same instinct that told her the envelope was pre-sealed, tells her to keep everything. Isaac's voice on the phone late that same night. Isaac calls. He rarely calls. His voice sounds like someone trying to sound normal when they aren't. He asks how she is doing. She says fine. He says good, that's good. A pause long enough to notice. Then, Serafina, I want you to know that I said your name at that table. Before the meeting happened. I said it more than once. Another pause. It didn't matter. But I said it. Serafina closes her eyes. I know Isaac. She doesn't know. But she believes him. They hang up and she sits in the quiet and understands that there are people who know something is wrong and stay silent anyway, and that their regret afterward doesn't undo the silence. The name Serafina files the LLC on a Wednesday morning before the print shop opens. She had considered names for weeks. Nothing with Mills. Nothing that pointed backward. Sable for the depth of color she had always worked toward in textile design. Dark, rich, layered. Thread because everything she knew about this industry came down to that. A single thread pulled correctly could change the entire structure of a fabric. She files it alone. No celebration. Just a confirmation email and a number she writes in her notebook. Maybelle's referral. Maybelle Turlo, whose Café Refresh Serafina completed 4 months earlier, mentions her to a property developer named Emmett Cross. Emmett is converting a former warehouse into mixed-use retail, and wants someone who can handle the interior material and design coordination. The budget is real. The timeline is tight. Serafina takes the meeting in the lobby of a downtown hotel, arrives 10 minutes early, orders water, and when Emmett Cross sits down, she does not pitch. She asks questions for 20 minutes before saying a single word about her own work. Emmett hires her before the coffee arrives. Valerie Richmond. The Emmett Cross project leads to a regional developers networking event that Serafina almost skips. She goes because Emmett mentions it, and she has learned not to skip things she almost skips. At the event she meets Valerie Richmond, 58, direct, the kind of presence that doesn't fill a room loudly but makes you aware of exactly where she is standing. Valerie asks Serafina what she is building. Not what she does. What she is building. Serafina answers honestly, including the part about leaving Mills Textile, though she leaves the envelope out of it. Valerie listens without interrupting. At the end she hands Serafina a card. Send me your portfolio and your 3-year projection. Not a pitch deck. A projection. The projection. Serafina spends 4 days on it. No design flourishes. No cover slide. Just numbers, client pipeline, market positioning, and a 1-page written section on why boutique hospitality textile consulting is an underserved space in their region. She sends it at 6 a.m. on a Thursday. Valerie responds at 6:47 a.m. the same day. Can you meet Friday? The investment over dinner. Valerie places an offer on the table. Not charity. Not a loan. A structured business investment with clear terms, defined equity split, and a clause that gives Serafina full creative and operational control. I invest in people who know what they're doing and just need a door, Valerie says. You clearly know what you're doing. Serafina reads every line of the agreement before signing. She asks 2 questions. Valerie answers both without hesitation. They shake hands over cleared dinner plates. First real project within 60 days, Sable and Thread lands its first major contract. A 4-property boutique hotel group seeking a unified textile and material identity across all locations. The client is Rufus Bonner, a hospitality developer who had heard Serafina's name from Clovis Turlow, who had heard it from Emmett Cross, who got it from Maybelle. That chain, from a small cafe refresh to a multi-property contract, is not luck. It is what happens when the work is good enough to travel on its own. The lost contract 14 months into Sable and Thread, a commercial real estate firm in the broader region, goes quiet on a proposal Serafina had spent 6 weeks preparing. The proposal was strong. The relationship had been warm. Then nothing. Serafina follows up twice. Professionally. No response. She lets it go. Lorelei Brock resurfaces 3 weeks later. Lorelei McGraw, the procurement coordinator who had sent the quiet warning message a year earlier, calls again. She had moved to a new firm. In her new role she had come across an email thread between a regional broker named Harlan McGraw and a property management group. Inside the thread, forwarded without being cleaned, was an earlier message. The sender was Marmon Mills. The subject line, heads up confidential. The content, measured, careful, professional sounding. It described a former employee of Mills Textile who might approach firms in the regional market. It expressed concern about her reliability. It mentioned that she had departed the company under circumstances involving questions of financial judgment. It did not use the word fired. It did not need to. It suggested. It framed. It left space for people to fill in their own conclusions. And they did. The folder gets heavier. Serafina asks Lorelei to forward the thread to a secure email address. She opens it that evening, reads it once, closes the laptop, and sits in the kitchen for 40 minutes. No music. No movement. Just the sound of the street below and the particular feeling of having a suspicion confirmed after you had already built your life around the possibility that it was true. Then she opens the laptop again, opens the folder named Record, and adds the email thread to it. Wyatt Conway. A college acquaintance connects Serafina to Wyatt Conway, a commercial attorney in the city, methodical, unhurried, the kind of person who asks questions slowly because he is already several questions ahead. She meets him in his office, places the folder on his desk, and walks him through every document inside it. The termination letter. The timeline. Leah's information about the valuation discrepancy. Lorena's warning. The Marmon email thread. Wyatt reads everything without interrupting. When he finishes he looks up. How many of these client relationships were documented under your name internally? She says, all of them. He writes something down. Good. Then we have something to work with. What it's called. Wyatt explains quietly without drama. That what the email thread describes, deliberate communication to professional contacts with the intent of damaging a person's business reputation, has a legal name. It is actionable. He is not advising her to move yet. He is advising her to keep building and keep documenting. Let her keep talking, he says. Every email she sends is another sentence in our case. Serafina nods. She says. Wyatt looks up. Him, she corrects herself. Wyatt says nothing. He writes something else down. The decision that evening. Serafina sits on the floor of her apartment, not from distress, from habit, the way some people think better when the ground is closer. She is not angry in the way she expected to be. The anger she expected was loud. This is something quieter, more purposeful. She does not want to destroy Marmon. She does not want to call Kathleen and present evidence. She does not want a confrontation in a room full of family members who will manage their expressions and say the right things and feel nothing. She wants something simpler and more permanent. She wants the record to be correct. And she is going to make sure it is. The invitation. 2.5 years after the estate meeting, Serafina receives a formal invitation to present at the Regional Commerce and Design Summit, the same industry event her family's business had attended for a decade, the same event where Mills Textile had won a Supplier Recognition Award 2 years in a row, both years during her tenure. She almost declines. Valerie, when Serafina mentions it, doesn't ask why she's hesitating. She just says, "You've earned that room. Walk into it." The arrival. Serafina arrives in a dress the color of deep charcoal. No jewelry, hair straight, the presentation of someone who doesn't need to announce herself. She signs in, receives her name badge. Serafina Mills, Sable and Thread founder. She has seen her name on documents before. This is the first time she has seen it on a badge in a room her family also occupies and felt nothing but steady. She sees them. Marmon is near the far end of the registration table, talking to a man in a gray suit. He hasn't seen her yet. Kathleen is seated at a round table with Pearl Doolin and Lydia Haskins. The same composed posture, the same careful positioning that says she belongs in any room she enters. Serafina observes all of this the way you observe weather. Noted. Accounted for. Not alarming. The presentation. When Serafina is introduced by the event moderator, the summary of Sable and Thread takes 45 seconds to read. Active projects across 3 states. A hospitality portfolio representing 14 properties. A recognized voice in boutique commercial textile development. The moderator calls her work quietly influential. She presents for 12 minutes. She does not look at Kathleen's table. She does not look at Marmon. She looks at the people in the room who are there because they want to learn something. Clovis Turlow. After the presentation, a developer named Clovis Turlow approaches her. He had worked with Mills Textile for years. She remembers his name from contracts she processed. He extends his hand. "I always wondered why they let someone like you walk away," he says. A pause. "Now I don't wonder anymore. You didn't walk away. They pushed before they realized what they were pushing out." He hands her his card. That conversation becomes Sable and Thread's largest single contract, a commercial development project in the region that Serafina's former family business had been pursuing for 2 years without closing. Marmon sees her on her way out of the ballroom. Marmon steps into her path. Not aggressively. Carefully. The way someone moves when they are recalculating. "Serafina." She stops. Looks at him. Says nothing. He fills the silence the way people do when they are not sure which version of themselves to present. "You've done well." She holds his gaze for 3 seconds. Then, "Yes." She walks past him. That is the entire conversation. That is enough. Wyatt finds the thread while conducting due diligence on a commercial partnership Sable and Thread is finalizing. Wyatt Conway pulls historical filings on the Mills family business as background context. Standard process. Inside those filings he finds a subsidiary company registered 2 years before the estate division. The subsidiary holds several active commercial contracts. Cross-referencing with Serafina's internal timeline and client records, Wyatt identifies 4 accounts that originated under her direct development work at Mills Textile. relationships she built, proposals she wrote, terms she negotiated, now generating ongoing revenue under a structure that carries neither her name nor her equity stake. Her work had been incorporated into a separate entity before the estate meeting and divided without her, under a valuation that never reflected it. Wyatt sends her a message at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. "Call me when you can. We need to talk." The conference table. Wyatt requests a formal meeting with Ralph Hobbs, framed as routine clarification on adjacent property filings for a commercial acquisition. Hobbs arrives in a good suit with a leather folder. The kind of calm that comes from 30 years of knowing which families have which attorneys and what the hierarchies look like. He sits. Wyatt sets a document on the table. A summary. The subsidiary filings, the account cross-reference, the valuation discrepancy Leah had described now confirmed in formal documentation, the Marmon email thread, and a legal analysis of applicable statutes. Hobbs reads. The room is quiet. Wyatt watches him read. Serafina is not in the room. She chose not to be. She did not need to watch it. 15 seconds. Hobbs finishes reading. Sets the document down. Does not speak for 15 seconds. Wyatt counts them. Then Hobbs looks up and asks, "Can I make a call?" That is the one simple question the title promised. Not an argument. Not a denial. Just a man who suddenly needs to speak to his client before he says another word. Because the math no longer works the way it was supposed to. The settlement, what follows, does not go to court. Wyatt's documentation is precise enough that Marmon's own attorney advises immediate resolution. A formal restructuring agreement is drawn up. Serafina receives a documented equity acknowledgement for the client accounts developed under her tenure, a financial settlement that Wyatt describes in his notes as appropriate, and a formal correction to the subsidiary filings that places her contribution on the record permanently. Marmon does not call her. Does not write. The silence from him is total. Serafina does not chase it. His acknowledgement stopped matching somewhere between the second year of building and the morning she got the Clovis Turlow contract. She can no longer locate the exact day it stopped matching. She only knows that it did. The letter's Bess Mills writes to Serafina 3 weeks after the settlement. The letter is handwritten on plain paper, not the family's formal stationery. Short. His handwriting is unsteady in places, like a man choosing each word more carefully than he is accustomed to. I was wrong to stay silent. I knew it then. I know it better now. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to know. Serafina reads it at the kitchen table. Then again by the window. She places it in a drawer. She does not reply. Not out of cruelty. Because some silences are not punishments. They are boundaries. And boundaries do not require explanation to be real. Kathleen does not write. She calls once 6 weeks after the settlement. Serafina answers. Her mother's voice carries the particular quality of someone who has decided to be gracious about something they have not fully accepted. You've made your point, Serafina. The door is open if you want to come back. Serafina looks out the window of her office. The street below is quiet. The print shop is closed for the evening. Somewhere music is playing from a distance she cannot locate. Mom, she says, I didn't make a point. I built a life. And I'm not coming back because I never left. I moved forward. Kathleen says nothing. The line stays open for a few seconds. Then Serafina ends the call. Gently. Without anger. She does not call again. What remains Sable and Thread now employs 11 people. Serafina still drives the same car she drove to that estate on a Thursday in October 4 years ago. Not because she cannot replace it, because she does not feel the need to prove she can. The office above the print shop has expanded into the floor below it. The fabric samples are still on the wall. More of them now. Each one representing a project finished, a client kept, a decision made without asking anyone's permission. Isaac calls occasionally. They keep it light. His garden, a book he is reading, a memory from before things were the shape they became. He does not bring up the meeting. Neither does she. Some things do not need to be spoken to be understood between two people who were in the same room and made different choices. Marmon's name appears in industry filings sometimes. Serafina sees it the way you see weather reports for cities you no longer live in. Noted. Unremarkable. She does not follow what became of him closely. The cease and desist Wyatt drafted, separate from the settlement sent to Marmon's office by certified mail, was 5 pages. Precise and cold. It listed 4 specific instances of defamatory professional communication, attached the email chain, and ended with a single clear line. If it continued, the next communication would be filed in a court. It did not continue. People think the end of a story like this looks like something dramatic. A confrontation. A moment where the person who hurt you finally understands the weight of what they did. A room where everything gets said out loud. Doesn't look like that. It looks like a Tuesday morning where you wake up and realize you haven't thought about them in 4 days. It looks like signing a contract and not comparing it to what you once had. It looks like sitting in a room you built and recognizing every corner of it as yours. Not because someone handed it to you. Because you built it when nobody was watching. Not to prove you could. Just because it was the only direction left that made sense. My family divided $6 million and left me out completely. For years later, my lawyer had one simple question for theirs. And the answer to that question didn't change who they are. It didn't change what happened in that room. It just put the record where it belongs. And once the record is correct, you don't need to carry it anymore. I used to think I needed them to see me. Now I just see myself. And on most days, on the quiet ones, the ordinary ones, the ones where nothing dramatic happens, that is more than enough.